Between January 23 and January 29, 2026, troops of the 22 Armoured Brigade of the Nigerian Army, operating under 2 Division, moved steadily into known terrorist hideouts in Kwara. The operation had a name that carried weight and meaning: Operation Igbo Danu, also known as Operation Forest Flush. And from the very first day, it was clear this was not going to be a routine patrol. This was a deliberate, coordinated, and determined push to crush terrorist networks that had turned forests into safe havens and villages into hunting grounds. The operation was carried out under the leadership of Major General Chinedu Nebefe, the General Officer commanding GOC 2 Division Nigerian Army, and Commander Sector 3 Operation Fansan Yama, alongside Brigadier General Nicholas Rume, the commander of 22 Armoured Brigade. They worked closely with the Office of the National Security Advisor, ONSA, combining military firepower with intelligence support.
From the very beginning, troops knew what lay ahead. The forests were thick, the terrain was rough, visibility was poor, movement was slow. These were areas terrorists had used for years, areas security forces had struggled to access in the past. Every step forward came with tension. Every rustle in the bushes raised alertness, but the troops moved anyway. Now, at this point, imagine what it takes for soldiers to walk into such places, knowing danger could come from any direction. Would you be able to keep your focus? Would fear slow you down? As troops advanced into several bandit enclaves, contact was made. Fighting patrols, supported by intelligence from ONSA, engaged terrorist elements hiding within the forests. In the exchanges that followed, one terrorist was neutralized, while others fled deeper into the forest, some believed to be nursing gunshot wounds.
From the very beginning, troops knew what lay ahead. The forests were thick, the terrain was rough, visibility was poor, movement was slow. These were areas terrorists had used for years, areas security forces had struggled to access in the past. Every step forward came with tension. Every rustle in the bushes raised alertness, but the troops moved anyway. Now, at this point, imagine what it takes for soldiers to walk into such places, knowing danger could come from any direction. Would you be able to keep your focus? Would fear slow you down? As troops advanced into several bandit enclaves, contact was made. Fighting patrols, supported by intelligence from ONSA, engaged terrorist elements hiding within the forests. In the exchanges that followed, one terrorist was neutralized, while others fled deeper into the forest, some believed to be nursing gunshot wounds. Their camps were not spared. The hideouts, places where kidnappings were planned, weapons stored, and victims held, were completely destroyed. Makeshift shelters, cooking areas, supply points, and escape routes were dismantled. For the terrorists, these were not just camps, they were lifelines. Losing them meant losing control. And just like that, groups that once terrorized communities were dislodged, forced to scatter. From there, attention shifted to Garin Dandi, a location in Ifelodun local government area of Kwara State. Locals know this place well, not for good reasons. For years, Garin Dandi had been whispered about as a logistics hub for bandits. Supplies passed through, information was shared, movement was coordinated. It was one of those places people avoided, especially at night. Troops stormed the area. What they found confirmed long-held fears. Logistics bases and supply systems belonging to the terrorists were uncovered and destroyed. Food stockpiles, materials, and support structures that kept the bandits operational were wiped out. Now pause and think about what that means. When you cut off supply lines, you weaken the enemy without firing a single shot. Hunger, confusion, and desperation set in. And that was exactly the goal, to make it impossible for these groups to regroup easily. Community members watched from a distance, hearts pounding. Some had lived under silent threats for years. Others had lost loved ones or paid ransoms. Seeing troops take control brought a mix of relief and cautious hope. Do you think communities like this will ever forget moments like these? The oppression did not stop there.
troops pushed further into remote camps previously considered inaccessible to security forces. These were places terrorists believed were safe simply because of how difficult they were to reach. But the soldiers kept moving. In these areas, they discovered abandoned camps and logistics enablers, signs that the terrorists had fled ahead of the advancing troops. Even in absence, the damage was clear. Everything that could sustain the groups, shelters, storage points, pathways, was destroyed. This significantly degraded the terrorists' ability to survive and operate in the forests. Another angle to this issue is the psychological impact. When criminals realize nowhere is truly safe anymore, fear changes sides. The forest that once protected them became traps. Despite the difficult terrain, troops maintained an aggressive posture across forested areas. They did not just attack camps and leave, they anticipated movement. Blocking positions were established along likely escape routes, and it paid off. As terrorists attempted to flee, troops intercepted them, leading to the arrest of suspect bandits. Some were caught tired, confused, and injured. Others tried to blend into the forest, but failed. At this stage, the operation shifted from combat to control, denying the terrorists freedom of movement and preventing regrouping. Let's pause and think about the discipline required for this kind of operation. Hours of waiting, total silence, constant alertness. One mistake could mean letting dangerous individuals slip away.
Now let us talk about the part of the story that truly touches the heart. During these operations, numerous kidnapped victims were rescued from different camps across the state. Men, women, and possibly young people who had spent days or weeks in fear were finally free. Imagine their emotions, the first sight of soldiers instead of armed captors, the moment the ropes were loosened, the confusion, the tears, the relief. Some were weak, some were traumatized, some could barely speak, but they were alive. For families back home, this meant prayers answered, nights of crying replaced with cautious smiles. Communities that had lived under fear felt a sudden, powerful sense of hope. Should any society ever accept kidnapping as normal? Should forests become prisons? But here's where the story becomes uncomfortable. Observations from the operations revealed that terrorists receive support from collaborators within nearby communities. These individuals provide intelligence on troop movements, allowing terrorists to withdraw early from targeted locations. This is not speculation. It is a serious security concern. Now, at this point, we need to ask hard questions. Why would anyone help people who destroy their own communities? Is it fear, money, coercion, or misplaced loyalty? Whatever the reason, this collaboration remains one of the biggest challenges to lasting peace. Terrorists do not operate alone. They depend on information, food, shelter, and silence. And silence, in many cases, is the most dangerous weapon.
Despite these challenges, the successes recorded during Operation Igbo Danu show the resolve and operational effectiveness of 2 Division Nigerian Army in degrading terrorist elements and restoring security across Kwara State. Major General Chinedu Nebife has called on members of the public to continue providing credible and timely information on bandits and their collaborators. According to him, community cooperation is essential to sustaining the gains already made. The operation is ongoing and troops remain on ground to deal decisively with all terrorist networks operating within the state. Security sources say sustained pressure is key. Terrorist groups often attempt to return once operations slow down. That is why continued vigilance is necessary. On the ground, the atmosphere has changed, not completely, but noticeably. Farmers are cautiously returning to their fields. Traders move with less fear. Nighttime silence no longer feels as threatening in some areas. But there is also caution. People know peace is fragile. Military vehicles are still visible. Patrols continue. The forests are no longer ignored spaces, they are monitored zones. Children still ask questions, elders still worry, but there is a shared understanding that something important has shifted. Can this be the beginning of lasting security, or just a temporary relief?
From this point, we need to understand the bigger lesson. Operations like Igbo Danu show that security is not only about weapons, it is about intelligence, trust,
and community responsibility. Terrorism thrives where fear silences people. It weakens when communities speak up. The presence of collaborators reminds us that security challenges are often social problems before they become military ones. Poverty, fear, misinformation, and broken trust all play a role. Solving this requires more than patrols. It requires dialogue, protection for informants, and rebuilding trust between security forces and civilians. As Operation Igbo Danu continues, one thing is clear. The forests of Kwara are no longer safe havens for terror. But lasting peace will depend on what happens next. Will communities choose courage over silence? Will information flow faster than fear? Will criminals find themselves isolated and exposed? These are questions only time and collective responsibility can answer. For now, the message is simple and strong. Security is a shared duty. The soldiers are doing their part. The rest of us must do ours. Stay aware, stay cautious, speak up when something feels wrong. And remember, peace is built not just by force, but by unity and vigilance. What do you think is the biggest obstacle to ending banditry in forest communities? Fear, poverty, or betrayal from within?